Hey, this is Alan Fenstermaker here on Top Rope TV, Facebook Live. I'm here with the Big Al Boski, and what's your name?
Professor Keith.
Awesome, guys. Now, what's your podcast that you guys do?
We do Around the Turnbuckle on Saturdays and Sundays at 6 p.m. on Facebook and on YouTube. Come check us out.
Okay.
Indeed, wrestling history, local wrestling, we do it all. We have great following, and we'd love for you to be a part of it too.
Okay. Now, how did you guys get started doing this?
We got started doing this because we made a few friends in the indie circuit, and they pointed us in the right direction. And the next thing you know, we met Mr. Rob Noxus, and he pointed us in another direction. And then all of a sudden, they've been trying to contact me to be on the show, and I love it because I want us to be a supporting podcast for Pennsylvania wrestling all over the state and eventually all over the country, I hope.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, everybody complains about WWE, AEW, whoever, saying, the product's not for me anymore. But, what we wanted to point out was there's great wrestling in your backyard, no matter where you live. Support your local independents. Wrestling is out there. The art form is out there, and it's not exclusive to any one company or any one person, and that's what we want to share. We want to share the love of wrestling, because that's what we do. Our podcast grew out of just a bunch of us sitting around talking about wrestling every day, all day.
Okay. Now, do you guys have any favorite moments in wrestling?
As far as WWE goes?
WWE, anything in wrestling altogether.
Well, my favorite match of all time has got to be The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 25. I'd go with that one. The professor here is a big Undertaker fan, so am I. But, he is more so. But I always like Shawn also. That they set the bar for greatest matches of all time. I mean, a lot of people say that Randy Macho Man Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat Mania 3. I agree with that because I'm a huge Macho Man fan. But that aside, Taker and Shawn in their prime did their thing, man. They did their thing. They brought the house down, and then 10 years later, they're still talking about that match.
Okay. How about you?
Yeah, I gotta say that's a great match for Mania. For me, probably my favorite moment is the moment that got me into wrestling, which was the Ultimate Warrior and the Undertaker on the funeral parlor, and Taker locking him in that casket, and you got creepy Paul Bearer. I'd kind of been into wrestling at that point. Andre was a spectacle for me, and then Warrior, a real life superhero, because I'm still a nerdy superhero guy. But then I saw Taker, and I looked at my brother, who was the big fan. Then I'm like, that guy.
Yes.
Who is that guy? How do I find out more about him?
Okay. Now, what do you think about the wrestling business and how COVID-19 impacted it, and how the changes and all with wrestling in general from it?
Yeah, well, there's been an outbreak of cinematic matches, right? I mean, you've seen it a lot in the pay-per-views. Without having fans, they had to figure that out. First, they brought in guys from the Performance Center, and they had them behind the screen, behind the screens, making as much noise as they possibly could. And only 20, 30 people can only make so much noise. This whole new thing with the Thunderdome, where, they kind of took a page out of the NBA, where they had the fans on the screens and things like that. I think that's brilliant. I think that's awesome. It's actually, you can kind of get into it a little bit more. They really do miss the fans. I know that the indie guys are used to wrestling in front of the fans, but TV guys are used to having those big 15, 20, 30,000 people in an arena, and they don't have that anymore. All of a sudden, it's taken away. Go to Drew McIntyre, for example. He had his WrestleMania moment. He won the title at WrestleMania, this past year's WrestleMania, yes? But he didn't have that big, huge 70, 80,000 people crowd. It might have been a different moment, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But back to the cinematic matches, I'm not a big fan of them. I did like Taker versus AJ Styles at Mania, but the Swamp match with the Fiend versus Braun Strowman, and a lot of these cinematic matches where, they're pre-taped, whatever the heck that thing was with John Cena and the Fiend, where they showed different sides of Cena throughout the years. I wasn't a huge fan of that. I do understand why they exist though, because with the pandemic they had to get innovative, they had to figure something out. But I hope that things like this, where we're starting to have fans come together, socially distanced here tonight, beautiful day out here in Marysville to watch CCW action. I hope that this is the start, and the Thunderdome is also the start of getting fans back in the arenas, because we need to get fans back in the arenas. As fans watching on TV, we want to hear the crowd. We want to hear the boos. We want to hear the cheering. We want to hear the "you suck" chants. You know what I mean? We want to hear that stuff. That's part of pro wrestling. So to answer your question, the pandemic has affected, that part of it. You know what I mean? That part of it. The fan reaction part is what gets in their skin. That adrenaline rush, when they come through that curtain, they don't have that adrenaline rush. It's all of a sudden it was taken away from them.
Okay. You have anything you'd like to add at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're living through a new epoch now, and I'd rather focus on the positives of it, because obviously we could talk about the negatives. You know, Evolve went down with this. I think Chikara has said they're going to shut down, and I hope that's not what we're going to see, that we're not going to see a lot of companies shutting down, but I do think what we're going to see, and we talked to Mark Mest about it a couple weeks back, and he feels like the way it's going to go is it's going to be more shows like this. It's going to be more outdoor. It's going to be more virtual. It's going to be more using YouTube, using Facebook. And it may be more like WWE is doing, where you have a residency, where you say, okay, I'm going to rent a building for X amount of weeks, and we're going to set up, and we're going to go. I think wrestling is going to be different on the other side of this, and I hope and I feel like I think wrestling is going to be better, because that's one of the great things about wrestling. It evolves. No matter what's going on, wrestling finds a way to survive and evolve.
Like, that's interesting you say evolve, because I remember Paul Heyman, he was at Evolve over at the 2300 Arena last year, and he was talking about how the wrestling needs to evolve. And now, what are some of your favorite indie promotions in the state?
So far, we're just getting to know that. I mean, we were focusing in the beginning when we first started the podcast 6 months ago. We were focusing on WWE, we were focusing on AEW, we were focusing on NXT, and I realized that, you know, there's a lot of wrestling out there that I just was not completely aware of. So I'm expanding. I mean, so far we've checked out Triple WA, we've checked out Valor, we've checked out H2O, we've checked out we're here today for CCW. We're branching out as much as we can throughout the Pennsylvania area. And if any wrestlers are watching this, man, hit me up. Search around the Turnbuckle. Hit the Big Alboski up around the Turnbuckle. Search me. Send me a message. I'd be glad to have you. I'd be glad to talk about an appearance, man. We like every show now. We seem to have a guest. We've had Rob Noxious. We've had Mark Mest. We've had Mal Havoc. We've had JT Cage and the Hat Guy from Triple WA. We've had Brickhouse. So, I mean, we keep having some. We're going to have Rebecca Payne soon. We're going to have Samu from WXW in October. So we're excited about that. We've had the CCW champion, BJ Walker. So, I mean, the guys, if you're out there and you want to be heard, you want to get your name out there, and you want to be spread about with, you know, I know there's 100 podcasts out there. Get out on them podcasts, sure, but stop by mine, man. We'll do whatever we can to help you. We're out to support our indies.
Okay, awesome. You have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to echo what Alan said. You know, we love wrestling. That's why we're doing this. We love wrestling, and we want to get the word out about wrestling. And we want to get people, you know, if you're not happy with what's going on, or you love what's going on nationally, supplement, add to it. You know, the more wrestling you can get in your life, the better is how I feel.
Cool, man. Now, thanks, guys, for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man. Thank you.